and down.
What the heck?
Good day, good night, good morning, and welcome to your Easter Sunday service. I know many of you have not been able to go out to your local church, you heathens. Most of you weren't going to go anyway, but Realz got you covered so that therefore you don't get in trouble with the man upstairs. So we got your service covered today. And before I go any further, let me introduce my ministresses of evil and shade and demonic forces. We have Sister Andrea from Solely Tennis Travel. How are you, girl?
I'm good.
Hello?
I'm good, Brother Realz.
Wow. Apparently, you're trying to act like if I wasn't talking to you. Why is it that you can't go in?
I was here, but you like invoked evil on a holy day. I was like, what? No.
Well, Tony said he's already in trouble, but I'm just saying.
Are we going to pray for you today, Tony? We are going to pray for Brother Anthony.
How are you, Sister Andrea? How are you?
I'm good. I went out yesterday. After 10 days of being inside, I'm a little bit like Jesus rolling away the stone. But
did you go in like a bubble and like a plastic bubble and was just like with a siren said, maintain 12 feet, maintain 12 feet.
I was so bad. We went to a park to just do a bit of walking because it's like, listen, I'm not getting any kind of exercise in because I'm just not that committed to doing those things on Zoom. And so we had mask on with the whole thing. And then I leaned over to my sister and I was like, that guy is really sneaky. He's running right by us. And then he's sneezing. We're downwind from him.
Oh my God. I would have fight somebody.
I know. Suddenly everything was maniacal and like crazy and everything. But I was just like, can I tell you, it's so surreal to be outside. Like unfortunately, I'm like, unlike you and Janina, I think, who've been going out, I really have been in full on lockdown mode. And so every time I go outside, I'm like, oh, outside. How wonderful this feels.
Fresh air.
I know, right? Like that.
Like, it feels actually really creepy. And then my sister leaned over to me and she's like, it's so creepy. The sun is shining so brightly. Everything looks so good. It's too bad we could die as a result.
Exactly. It's like Christmas morning, but it's death as your present. There's a possibility of death under the tree.
I need to know if you were wearing a mask and were the people that you saw wearing masks.
You know what? I will say, reporting from California, the people were wearing masks. Everyone I saw was wearing a mask except for a couple of homeless people and these like two smarty pants looking folks that look like they were above masks, which, by the way, that would have been me like maybe a month ago.
Oh.
Rolling my eyes at people wearing masks in general. Now I have to change my cultural practice. But yeah, it was like everyone, like, listen, people are taking it seriously now. They're wearing masks.
Okay, good.
Well, hello, Yvette, Sister Yvette, and Tony, Brother Tony. You are here and welcome.
Sister Deborah is here.
Sister Deb, I see your Easter hat on. Sister Deb.
She got her
Yvette, I know this you.
Yes, I love it. It's purple hats. I know,
Yvette. I know as a Jamaican, yours is green, yellow, and black, and it's just massive. I know that's what it is.
Wait a minute. Why is Tony talking about he can't get a mask? This motherfucker works. Oh, I'm sorry. We're not swearing. It's Easter Sunday.
I mean, Jesus.
Jesus, forgive me. But he works in a hospital. I've been telling him to steal, but we're not going to talk about that today because the devil,
God is not a forgiving God.
See, when I said the mistress of evil and shade and the forces of evil, y'all got mad and look. Before we even said anything, Andrea was like, Sister Andrea was, what the heck? See? We need a revival in this church. We need a revival. And
Yes.
I beg your pardon. Sister Deb says deacons can't wear hats. She got her white gloves on. Oh,
I told you she had her white gloves on.
Sister Deb, I am playing with you. Sister Deb, I am not playing with you, Sister Deb.
She's like the usher guiding people to their seats. I love the ushers.
Let her pass the collection.
You were late. I know even I know you're no church lady. I know you're no church lady. Even you gotta tell me that. And all the way from Fern, Ohio, we got Sister Janina. What's going on with you?
Praise the Lord.
We let her in the country.
Praise the Lord.
How are you, Miss?
That's all you gotta say. How are you?
I know.
So let me tell you about my mask wearing experience yesterday. I had to go to the grocery store to get stuff for this beautiful Easter dinner I prepared. And most people were not wearing masks, but I did see a family. Why the whole family was out, I do not know, but it was a mother and two daughters. They all had masks on. And they saw some people that they knew who did not have a mask on, two women who did not. And they waved and they started to approach each other. Then they stopped and remembered that we're in times of social distancing. And then they made a conscious effort and just looked at each other with that weird dog tilt of the head thing, and decided to go forward. And the woman had the mask on, pulled the mask away from her face, and went in for a hug. I said, "Oh, Jesus, Lord, we're all gonna die."
Listen, they don't care. We go have
my experience has been that I would see white people with masks on, but they won't wear it. They would be like below their nose, on the ears, but as soon as they see me, they pull it up. I was like, okay.
What are you, the police?
I don't know, but I'm wearing a mask too. But I'm just like, well, thank you. Because I'm silently saying under my breath, why is this runner coming so close to me? Like, what's wrong with you? Like, get away from me. But I have been walking everywhere, which is such an unusual thing in New York City. I feel like I'm back in the Caribbean because you're generally everywhere. But I've not been on public transport at all. But that's a privilege I can afford to walk. I mean, work isn't, like across the river or something like that. So, but I've, so far so good, I guess.
Oh, Sister Yvette is wearing her mask, hoodie. I don't know why you're wearing a hoodie. I think you live in Florida, but also her gloves. Hey, yes, tell the unmasked people to back up. Say back up. You cannot come at me with that.
It is true. You do see that people are like getting, I guess, like when you go to the supermarket, at least for me, people are like, you're too close. You're too close. Like,
I'm actually wondering about certain social activities and adding masks into them. Like, for example, this church service that we're having. Can you imagine like a church service, like how because one of the things my sister and I are saying is like eventually masks is just going to become a part of what we're going to have to do. And so now we're going to have to make them really fancy, coordinate them with our outfits.
Like glasses.
Listen, this is happening in my office. I want you to know that exact thing is happening in my office. This sweet girl Diana sewed all these cute masks, and they're super cute. And everybody's like, "Oh, this one matches my outfit the best. I'll take this one." And she's totally capitalizing on it because that's what Americans do. She brought in like 15 masks with a printed out piece of paper saying, these are cloth. They will not protect you 100%, but they will protect you better than nothing. Please feel free to take one. If you like another, let me know. It will be $5.
Yes.
I say you go, Diana.
The first is free.
The first is free.
Is here. The first
that is how
free.
The drug dealers hook you in. Let me give you a little taste.
Free. Well, I mean, I call myself supporting the Chicago mask making group. I ordered these masks like I think maybe 2 weeks ago. The next thing, the Chicago people sent me an email. The mail service is now becoming a problem. So I don't know when these masks are going to get here. So luckily I went into my toolkit, and I think my sister and I bought masks like a long time ago, like at the $1.99 store or the 99-cent store for 99 cents. And so these are just like these like very light, no frills masks that we ended up using. So nothing fancy. Although I have seen some cool African print masks on Facebook. I might go
My thing is I just keep sweating under the mask and I just feel like, oh my God, I'm just like whatever germs my body is trying to get rid of anyway, it's just all pulling out my face.
Just pick up one of the church fans, Realz.
But I'm afraid to like wipe my nose or anything because I have to go in and touch the mask. And I was just like, oh my God.
Let me be the one to tell you that should your mask become soiled, it's time to change it. So.
Yeah, basically.
Well, I mean, like I feel it's soil as soon as I step out of the house. Like as soon as I walk
heavy breathing.
Right, because they say that it's not even that. They say that you have to cover like your nose bridge. It's basically supposed to be under your eyes and cover your chin.
Yeah,
so like you're almost like a ninja basically walking outside.
Yes, you are.
So I'm like, oh,
it gets hot under there. Listen, try wearing it. Try wearing it for 8 hours a day.
I know. I feel like
that is true.
On Friday, I was like, fuck this shit. Y'all stay away from me. I can't breathe. I got to take it off. Just go get away. Oh, Lord, we're at church. I forgot.
Yeah.
This is going to be hard. This is going to be real hard.
And people who and like I see a lot of people like they're wearing like bandanas and whatever, which you cannot get anymore, right? Bandanas you can, and I'm also afraid to wear bandanas because I'm like,
bandanas you had. I was like,
well, I never owned one. That's just there. I mean, like I'm a black man in New York City. Like, why would I have this in any capacity?
Listen, if anybody needs a mask, please go to www.realztennisfans.com. Donate $5. I've got you.
Oh, look at you.
What are you talking about? There's no such website. Like,
listen, don't, Realz. No one needs to know that right now.
Oh my God.
Are you trying to be Miss Rodala? Are you trying to be Miss Rodala? We're not having a mega church.
Listen, the praise and worship session is over. It is time for us to move on.
Yes.
We are going to have a nice piece of scripture that will be read to us by Brother Realz. But first, please let us enjoy a little music. Please bow your heads, close your eyes, put your hands up to the air and praise the Lord. Thank you for bringing us here today for this Realz Easter service. Thank you so much, Jesus. God bless Brother Tony. Get him a mask. Please get him a mask. We're so happy that Maya could be here with us live today. She missed it. The Lord was calling to her and brought her to us. Thank you, Lord. Please raise us up.
And she's away from the hummingbirds. And she's with us. Thank you, Sister Maya, for spending a lovely evening with us.
I am down. Oh, my soul so
okay.
Listen, children, do we have to send you to the back of the church?
Copyright rules impose that we should give it a right. Let's give it a rest now. Please note this is for fair use only, not for commercial purposes. So they send me that email. They send me that email immediately. Now the word is taken from today's word.
Oh, sorry. I was feeling it.
I can't believe you're feeling this. It sounds like Irish music, by the way. Go ahead.
Oh, sorry.
I'm not the greatest of singing. I'm not even worried about the Irish music. It's the singer that I have a problem with.
Please, Brother Realz, give us your reading.
It's the fun.
Everyone, please pay attention as to Brother Realz delivers us this piece of scripture.
The word is taken from WADA's Anti-Doping Policy, Article 2. And what is strict liability? The principle of strict liability is applied in situations where urine, blood samples collected from an athlete have produced adverse analytical results.
Amen.
It means that each athlete is strictly liable for the substances found in his or her bodily specimen.
Yes,
and that an anti-doping rule violation occurs whenever a prohibited substance or its metabolites or markers is found in bodily specimen. Whether or not the athlete intentionally or unintentionally used the prohibited substance or was negligent or otherwise at fault. Here ends the word.
Thank you so much, Brother Realz. Thank you. That was beautiful. Our tennis church. I hope you were listening to that. Do not let the devil come and get you to put those nasty, ugly things in your body. We need a clean church.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do.
I like that I have to say the scripture says we don't even care about your intentions.
Nope, we don't. We don't. Because God knows that whatever you say, it's the opposite. When you say it's unintentional,
yes,
it's intentional.
As Brother Tony said, please don't forget to click the link. Thank you for that, Brother Tony. Thank you.
Listen, in these dangerous times, they have to wade through a lot of inbox junk mail.
And we can send you this by email, by the way. All those who are listening out in the internet land, we can send you this by email. Just make sure you read your emails. Just saying.
Yes, but don't forget to donate. Don't forget to donate.
Oh my God. Anyway.
Oh. I mean, I don't know where you're getting this donation, okay, but okay. I'm just gonna put there because I know the FBI got the time. I know the FBI will get the time.
I mean, I just feel like at church
they're around for all you fraudsters.
First and foremost, it is clear you don't go to enough church. There's only one call at some point in time, and it's not yet. After you've gotten the sermon, then your body feels ready.
No.
I think on the internet church, they're always clicking, they're always flashing the donation link.
That's right.
So
Oh yeah. Always.
Is that for real?
Yes.
Oh my God.
Yes.
That's crazy.
Click to subscribe. It's only 99 cents.
Church members, those who are present and those who are, hiding in the back rows, there will be an opportunity if you'd like to come on and say something, have a word of testimony, or you can always put it in the description box below, the comment box, and we will be happily read it for you.
But we would love to hear you on this holy day. We would love to have you come on the podcast.
Make sure you got yourself set up.
Yes. So be ready for that. And now it's time to move on for our sermon of the day. Today.
Ooh.
Yes, Brother Realz?
No, I was waiting for Sister Janina to say the word, but I'm paying attention.
Oh, I'm glad you are paying attention. Sister Andrea, are you also paying attention?
I am.
We need full attention here.
I have got my notebook. I've got my notebook ready.
Yes, please take notes. Today's word that I wanted to talk to you about has an overarching theme about the uniting of the tennis church. We are in some very difficult times right now. So we wanted to sit down. Very difficult, very divided. And we need a strong message of unity today, the day that Christ has risen. So today we want to resurrect the tennis world into one body, one mind, one soul. Okay? Are we all together? Can I get an amen?
Amen.
Are we speaking strictly for the men?
You just said one mind, one body. The tennis. What's the default, mister?
I mean, because in some churches.
First. Let her deliver her sermon.
Okay. All right.
So I wanted to
sorry.
I know. I wanted to draw from the wisdom of our new Italian leader of the tennis world, Andrea Guadenzi. I don't know what his name is.
Guadenzi.
Right?
Guadenzi.
He had some thoughtful things to say about what's happening in the world right now, about everything just shutting down and what we need to do to get back and what we need to do to make it better. And he says, our immediate strategy has to be to protect the public health and safety. Listen, we have to protect the congregation. We have to watch out for the little people, the lower ranked players, the 250s of the world, the 500s. No, we don't need to try to protect Roger Federer. We just need to be grateful that he is still here with us. Amen.
Amen.
Amen. We don't need to protect Rafa. We will always be there to pick his butt. The camera will always be on him. We have to watch the little people, and we need to take care of them in these time of needs. You know, he said his tenure began with such tragedy. We had the Australian bushfires. We have the coronavirus outbreak. This poor man is bracing, he says, for World War III. We don't want that. We have to come together as a collective community and tell the devil to get away. We are going to join hands and pray as one. We are going to ask for forgiveness by WADA. Let all the people come back and come back strong. We won't ask what you did on the break. Just come back strong and healthy so that we can make all the money. We have to make all the money and unite under one church and praise the one true tennis god. Do you know who that tennis god is?
Cash.
Fill in the seats. It's all about, he tells us this is an opportunity. We can't let this get us down. This is an opportunity to come back bigger and better and stronger. He tells us that, you know, we have billions of fans in the world, but we're only taking a little tiny piece of that market. You know what's going to come good of this? We might get one uniting place to watch tennis, guys. This is a miracle in itself. This is a miracle. Nobody could do this other than Jesus. Nobody. He is considering getting rid of all of these different little platforms and getting us one tennis watching platform. Amen.
I will believe it when I see it. That will be the work of a miracle.
Listen, this is why we have to pray. We have to pray on this hard tennis.
And I pray you be generous. I can borrow one of your passwords.
Listen, we have to see the big picture, okay? We have to see the big picture. We have to let this be a collaborative effort and spirit so that we can get this done. Take strength from what your doctors and nurses are doing right now, okay? So that we can become one. We have to cater to the masses of our fans and spread that good word that we want one uniting stream platform. That's it. One. We don't need Tennis Channel, ESPN Now, Tennis TV, WTA TV. We need one church.
Jesus
says, come together. Rejoice as one. Let us be that tennis. Let us be that.
And where two or more tennis players are gathered, we should all be able to see it, no matter where in the world you are.
No matter where.
Amen.
No matter where. Amen. 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 We're going to try really hard.
Ooh, that was a word.
We're going to try really, really hard. You know, we're worried about what the end of the year is going to look like, and it's scary because we don't like the unknown, and the devil is trying to get at us. But that's okay. We have to think about what it's going to look like in the future. Let's look to the future. Okay?
What he tells us about the biggest one of all, the biggest devil of all, the United States. What does he say? What's he say?
Well, really, he says that everything hinges on the United States, which is really kind of scary right now. Because if something happens and the U.S. Open gets canceled, it's really going to just put everything that they're trying to plan into such bigger turmoil. So we have to pray really, really hard that the U.S. Open happens. I mean, we know that the house of the U.S. Open right now is a place of body holding for the sick. So we have to pray for these people that they get well and get out so we can play sports.
He sounds like one of those new preachers. He sounds like one of those new preachers. No fire and brimstone here. All positively and light. I like this preacher. Thank you. Thank you for that sermon. Thank you for that sermon, Sister Janina.
Oh, you're welcome. Praise the Lord. Listen, tell your neighbor that you love them, that you want to watch tennis with them on the same platform. Take care of the little people and unite. one church, one love, one tennis.
It's already united.
I have a question.
Tennis united, right?
I have a
Tennis
question.
united.
I have a question. Is this word from the first book of delusionality?
Yes, it is. And I want to remind you, listen, do not be selfish. You are your brother's keeper. Take care of them.
Could I have a testimony? I found a couple parts of the sermon really compelling. The first thing I thought was really interesting is that they refused to give up the clay season. They refuse to give up the clay season, even if we don't play until the end of summer.
Well, it's important that we cater to the rich, because that's where we get our money from. I mean, if we're being honest. So we have to make sure that, the biggest money makers are there, because that part of our season is so big. So, we have to pray that happens no matter where it falls in the year. We need to make sure that Rafa gets his 10,000th French Open title. We need to make sure that happens. It is in the best interest of the church.
But is this because the European clay season favor Europeans because it's there, it's in their time zone, and US Open doesn't really spark that much interest for them?
No, we don't. We don't care about that.
No, I think, one of the things so of course, Sister Janina is referencing the interview that came out of Ubi Tennis. Because you'll probably be getting all your tennis news from Ubi Tennis from now on, because they've got the Italian connection. And it was a nice, long, translated interview with the new ATP chairperson. And so I think, it seems to me, though, that the U.S. Open is essential in people's mind. Like, if the U.S. Open happens, that means you have the fall. If it does not happen, you do not have the fall.
Correct.
And it is scary to think about that, because maybe there was a point in time when you think that we had leadership that could make that happen in the United States. But I would probably have bet on another country for that right now.
But
he's speaking about money, though. They seem hell-bent on his approach is that they seem hell-bent on having a season. 2020 is not canceled in his mind.
It is not canceled, but it's okay.
He's keeping it open as an option.
The goal is for us to have 3 Grand Slams. Wimbledon is done, dusted, not going to happen. No matter what, Wimbledon isn't happening. So we're going to try to have.
So they're cool. They're cute.
3 slams and 7 masters. So pray to the 7, the old gods and the new, that this will happen. Because according to Brother Andrea, that is what will save this season. Masters Series and Grand Slams. And we'll try to financially supplement the 250 and Challenger tournaments.
What did Deb say?
Thank you, Sister Debbie. Sister Deb says, I heard one of the doctors say it makes no sense to plan a conference for the fall. So how will there be tennis?
There won't be tennis. There will not be tennis. But we have to pretend like there will be tennis.
But I mean, oh, Jesus. But I guess you have to say something, right?
Deb also says that, Wimbledon has cashed their check. That is literal. They did have an insurance policy for cancels for if the tournament got canceled. Did y'all see that?
Yeah.
So
they got like $140 something million.
Yeah. So they're getting paid, on some level anyways.
$75 million policy.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it made sense.
But I thought all
playing into it. No, not all of them did. Wimbledon was the one that had the most foresight to just continue to pay into it. Because, it's kind of like when you have your own insurance.
Because of rain.
You're like, nothing's happening
because
here.
Of rain.
No, there was pandemic insurance. This is what's interesting about it. Yes, it probably was the rain that led them to that, because they're the ones that have experienced, maybe some.
Oh, and an insurance company wouldn't have given them a policy based on rain, because of the actualities would show that rain is a likely possibility, and they would have to pay out for that quite quicker. Right. The possibility of them paying out for weather is easier than paying out for like pandemic. Look at Wimbledon. Woo.
Well, and they slipped the pandemic piece in there. I mean, they're aware, but it's as we've seen from the last pastor that we had, Deacon Obama. He predicted that we would potentially face a global pandemic and that we should shore up our teams. We haven't done that. So Wimbledon takes Wimbledon takes the prize. It's the best slam, prettiest slam, loveliest slam. And now look at them, secure in the fact that they didn't have a slam and they don't have to jockey with the schedule anymore.
I think
the French and the US Open are still wondering about their schedule. See, if the French was in a better position, right? They too could go through the summer unworried because they would have known that they were canceled. But now they get to elongate the pain and suffering all the way to September.
Right. But I'm just simply saying Wimbledon, I guess Wimbledon knew they had to have pandemic insurance because of all the slams. That's the likelihood of if there is a pandemic, if they decide to go ahead, it would have been spread in there like more than any place else. People queuing up for days.
No, it's like Yvette said. They learned the lesson from the bird flu. No, HS. Yeah.
The old bird.
Well, actually, speaking of, do you think so? Then what do we think about who else would have insurance? Don't we think the tournaments in Asia would have insurance, knowing all that's possible? I think the likelihood of us having tournaments in Asia is stronger.
Probably, because if we have learned nothing, we have learned that the United States is not prepared. So they don't have any insurance.
So there will be no tennis in America at all. Anyway,
probably
baseball is trying something. And I don't know how they imagine that could even happen when people are literally spitting everywhere that's part of the sport. But I don't know how they're gonna imagine. And you're literally spitting on the ball and touching it, and like I don't know how they imagine that's going to happen. But, a white man would see a mountain and figure we can make something happen. They don't care who they bulldozer to get through that. So they're going to try something. It will fail, but they're going to keep on trying. Reading this man's statement, his interview, I am just like, this is complete madness. This interview would have made sense to me. Beyond the let's get together, whatever the case may be, I do detect when he's saying let's get together, he's speaking strictly on the men fraction, whatever fraction is going on in the ATP itself, not necessarily with WTA. But I'm like, sir, we haven't been able to no one has been able to fix this problem that you seem to pretend this is, right? He doesn't seem to see this as a pandemic. This is just merely a problem that's going on right now. He doesn't seem to be talking with the gravity or the scale of this issue, and somehow I'm like, what are you talking about?
I don't understand why you think he was.
You think so?
I think this is the only way you're going to move. I think you have a pandemic that is a moment for you to actually recalibrate. I think in the very beginning he establishes that there's no urgency. He would like to recover the season, but there's no urgency in recovering the season if you don't come back different. Like he's like, this is a time for self-reflection. This is a time you've never had a chance to plan. The players themselves talk about it. They never have its off time. Tennis for the first time has off time. They should spend that time making plans, right? They should spend this time figuring out, as Sister Janina said in her sermon, getting that singular platform available for tennis players, for tennis fans, so we can just figure it out. Why do I need to find 10 places? And why am I paying for 10 different things? No, it's got to be a single spot, a shining light, a beacon. This is where we find it. I think he makes a good point about be constructive in this period. Your nurses and your doctors are the ones that are doing real labor. And that should give you some perspective about the fact that this infight is ridiculous, right? Listen, the corporate sponsorship, Sister Deb has already brought it up. Corporate sponsorship of tennis, because that's the other point he makes, is people who want to recover tennis but have it only happen in certain regions and then also only have it happen without fans. He's like, what sponsor is going to pay for that?
Yeah.
Right. Exactly. That's why I'm finding.
I hope you noticed though in the speech that he said there were going to have to be sacrifices. Y'all saw that?
Yes. Part of the sacrificial lamb.
What I was confused about. Go ahead.
I think part of that sacrifice is going to be sacrifices some players.
What do you mean?
They may be left on the altar, the ones that don't qualify for the big tournaments.
Well,
because clearly
he talked about that, right? He
yes.
talked about that it can't be too, but he said it can't be a second class tour.
And nor should it be.
It can't be a what, sorry?
A second class tour. He said there can't be that distinction. So I mean, I think because I'm curious, like if we're like imagining, like if you could imagine returning a better tour. People are always saying unify. What does that look like though? If you want to come back bigger and stronger and better, what does that look like?
So given the enormity of tennis around the world, right? And there is a reoccurrent theme that he comes back to time and time again throughout this interview, and that is the fans and the accessibility of tennis. So coming back stronger to me would actually look like tennis being cheaper to attend, because if you can open it up, more and more we're seeing tournaments try to give themselves upgrades, but in the end it prices the average fan right out of being able to get in the seat. So we need to think about ways we can get more people to live tennis, because we know that the TV and streaming audience is huge. We know that there are lots of fans out there, but they can't get to the actual event because it's such an elite space to occupy. So they really should use this time to focus on getting the average fan to the tournament and giving them the best possible experience. Every other sport does this, every single one. If you are rich and you can afford it, you can sit on the 50-yard line at a football game. You can sit courtside to a basketball game. But you know what? In that same exact space, you can buy a ticket for $20 and get almost the same experience. That's not an option in tennis. It's not. So they need to figure out a way to make the experience whole for every single person attending. Stop taking people and making them feel like they don't belong.
Yeah, I thought that's a good point, because I think there was this idea in it that I don't know if you saw that he talked about that all the different tournaments are part of a single story of tennis, which that just sounds like a very, I don't know if it's a researched term or anything, but it's like there doesn't need to be competition across the tournaments.
Mm-hmm.
That was definitely the theme that was emerging.
Indian Wells and Miami.
Yeah,
Fifth Slam or whatever.
Yeah, like why are you battling? It was interesting for him to talk about that, and that we can't make these preferences about who's a better fan. Like if you show up for slams, then great, show up for slams.
Mm-hmm.
If you show up for 250, I mean, I think when I say that, I think he meant there are going to be sacrifices. I think this is going to be a moment where certain tournaments are going to have to be shuttered. The ones that have not been generating revenue, they're going to have some serious come to Jesus moments.
Well, they should, but they shouldn't do that at the expense of accessibility to the people that want to see it. That's what I worry about.
But I mean,
right, because
the less tournaments you have, the more money you might potentially have in the pool to spread around.
Well, you know what might be a good idea?
But you also have less opportunity. Sorry, Janina, go ahead. No, go ahead, Janina.
So what if every tournament essentially looked the same and that was the uniting force, right? I mean, of course, there's always going to be certain little nuances in every place, but we know that players like to go certain places more than they like to go others because of the way that they were treated. What if we had a standard of care, basically, across all tournaments? That when you go to a tournament, this is the kind of food you're going to have. This is the kind of service, so to speak, that you're going to get, so that it is the same across the board, so that maybe each tournament has the same opportunity to attract big names. We know that, ultimately a lot of that decision making on the player part is the ranking system. I don't think that is going to change It doesn't need to change, but we hear all the time about how attractive a tournament is from the player's perspective. So if every tournament can offer something good, great. Treat them however you want to treat them. But if it was standard, that might help spread the love.
Yeah, like a baseline. Realz, go ahead.
I mean, yeah. I mean, I feel like we're talking a fantasy here, if I might say this. I mean, I get exactly what he's saying, but I think the nature in which tennis works, that it's going to be nearly impossible. And the sacrifices he's talking about, it's not just tournaments. It's going to be players. There are players who cannot pick up a...
There won't be players who will pick... Listen, do you think this is not going to eliminate a bunch of players for whom the loss of this year will make tennis not viable for them?
Right.
Definitely. But he's also imagining that when we come back, if we can come back, right, we're somehow going to come back in a somewhat like the world as it was before.
No, that's not what he's saying at all. He's saying it has to be a totally different world.
No. He's saying the sport has to be different.
Yeah.
But I'm talking about the world outside of the sport.
Mm-hmm.
Because and another problem with which is not a problem, I would say an issue, is that one thing you haven't heard in this time period is that, as they point out, is that Nole hasn't talked about refining his system, is that players have been relatively quiet about this whole issue. Now that they have like unlimited time to do nothing but study about their career, we haven't heard anything from any of the usual voices of who usually say anything.
Well,
organizing forces.
Why would we hear about them on Twitter though? They've already learned the lesson of that.
Well, and furthermore, they don't have any.
That might be an issue.
What do they have to say though? The players that you're saying we want to hear from, I'm not going to say they're not doing anything. There's probably something going on that we don't know about, but ultimately this is an extended vacation for them. They don't need to worry about money or whatever. It's if you look, and I'm not saying that you haven't, I know that you have been, but it's the lower ranked players who are crying out. That's
what I'm talking about though. But they're part of the tour.
Yeah. They're the ones saying, what are you going to do to help us? What are you going to do to supplement us? We need, they need some kind of unemployment insurance like 90% of the world does.
Well, that's what I mean in terms of like, I'm trying to imagine, because just the mere logistics of having a tennis tournament anyway. He's imagining, yes, that the world, that tennis, it's right that he is true that we should change tennis, it needs to be changed, etc. But I'm just unsure as to how all of that will happen unless we can imagine the world in which this tennis exists within, which is currently the problem, because we don't know what the world is going to look like and the logistics of how we're going to go about the world when what is causing this problem, we haven't have anywhere close to anything to a solution to this problem. Any of the solution that we can have isn't being enforced. So tennis is going to be, it's perfect. This would work well if we went back to the way we were before, which is not a guarantee, if you get what I'm saying. That
but I think
having a unified platform.
Well, I think in the reality of this is, and this is the sad thing, right? Is you are going to imagine, the idea is that you should have all countries participate. But that's never really been the case with tennis, right? There's some countries that are more participatory than others. They have federations that support them. Their players don't have to struggle for funding. I think it's sad, and I think this is going to be the tricky thing, is that like what's happening in quote unquote the real world, you're going to have a ton of federations that I think are going to really struggle to remain viable as tennis federations. And the assumption that America is going to automatically even be one of them is something to really explore, because just the nature of how we're handling this means that we might not be able to even launch a tournament, because we're not going to have all this. Janina just talked about a certain standard, a certain baseline.
Right.
Can you imagine what that baseline is going to be when you have other countries who are doing contract tracing, who are testing every single person. I mean, all of those pieces have to be in place as you're talking about, Realz. Like, if you think about the successful model of fighting this disease,
right,
Europe and America are not the successful models right now.
No, not even close.
Right. So that's what I'm saying. So that's my problem with the whole I mean what he's saying is very interesting, and it is true. Like, I was surprised. You're right. I mean, I don't expect players to necessarily be on Twitter having this conversation, but I would hope that players are having internal conversation, because this is a much needed break that they needed, right? They can repair their bodies, but the other issue is that they can't train, right? That training is next to impossible. Being able to train is a privilege.
I think I've read there are a few tennis players who are training who have been given like access to clubs, as long as the club.
That might be some kind of violation.
It probably is, which is why I'm not going to name names, but I think I've read that online, that there are some places where they're allowing their top players to train, as long as, I guess, they maintain 6 feet apart.
Right. I mean, and also
wipe it down after you left.
Because I'm thinking about other sports that, like, particularly the Olympic sports that were on schedule to happen this year, them trying to have to train for another year. Most of them are trying to basically go home or like access to a private pool, like literally their own pool or something like that. But tennis players are not like me, who work out at home, right? They need space and open space, and they require bodies to be present, right? You can't play tennis on your own. So that's why I am a little, I mean, I don't know, because I mean, I guess for me, maybe I can't get out of my own head. Like, I don't know how y'all are planning for something like this when we're not even planning to even live. Like, you know what I mean? We're not even planning.
Well, I mean,
we're planning recreation. When the world in which you live in.
But you're saying we. You're saying we. We have to be careful of the royal we. There are plenty of countries who are planning to live, because they have plenty of experience with dealing with this, with pandemics of sorts.
Right. But it's tennis. But I'm just simply saying, so let's say Asia. Let's say we take Asia model and say that's the place that's dealing with this, right? Japan, Hong Kong. Now, the nature of tennis is that will Hong Kong and Japan let players who come from America come into their country?
I mean, that's the question. I mean, this is the question about, like, because I mean, I thought about it too when I was looking. I was really heartened by his thing, but I was looking also just his statement. But I was looking at other sports. I hear baseball is trying to think about how they're going to do this. Basketball players, blah blah blah. And I thought to myself, guess what, y'all? The only way we're going to make a movement on this is if you all can figure out how to make sure that people live. So the money that you have saved, you probably need to help invest in whatever you can offer as the private sector to help the country get to where it needs to be. Like, I think one of the things, I think to your point, I think one of the things that's become really clear to me is that sports bodies think that they're operating in parallel to the virus and to how countries are going to handle it, right? But that can't be, because
especially not for tennis.
Yeah, they're in a bubble,
and are in some kind of bubble where what they're doing, they just need to concern about their yard.
Yeah,
and not necessarily like you live in a community, though. You understand what I'm saying? And part of what drives tennis, I mean, it is okay for a tournament or two, right? Because I've seen it in some boats, right, where you have no fans, right? And they're experimented by, in one case, they eventually relented and let people in, but people had to stay like in a certain area, right? And socially distanced or whatever that is, right? And let's not forget that is an arbitrary 6 foot, right? We don't know if that might change in the future, right? Like, because we haven't done enough testing. So I don't know we're gonna have tennis where, like, how is the financial incentive going to work? How is money going to? And again, the nature of tennis is the logistic of like one person, a team moving from all over the world, coming through airports, various airports,
Not even that, not even just the players and their teams. You have to think about what it takes to actually put on the tournament. He says in that interview that any one tournament can produce the need for, just to get the tournament going, 2,000 to 3,000 people. And a lot of those people travel as well. They're not all volunteers from the local place that is holding the tournament.
Right. Yeah, because the ATP travels with a team.
Right. So, there's so much. And because everything isn't hitting every place at the same time, it's going to be a really long time before a global sport can be global again. It's going to be way longer.
Any sport, really.
Well, no, not really any sport, I don't think, because when you have sports, okay, so the NFL is central to America. They're not traveling from continent to continent. The baseball teams will be here. The NBA will be here. Those sports are going to be able to get up and running if things are under control in America, whereas tennis has to wait for the entire world to get back to normal.
Or say goodbye, which is the part that I think people need to realistically take a look at. Although in this one moment, quote unquote, the most powerful country in the world, luckily is hamstrung. So that means that they would be on the chopping block. And so most likely that's the sacrifice won't happen. But
I think part of the sacrifice.
Yeah.
Go ahead, Andrea.
You're to your point. Go for it. Part of the sacrifice.
I was about to say part of the sacrifice we made the sporting organization that they might have to leave America behind. International sporting organization.
I know.
America might have to be left behind, because here is another thing that you have to consider. That you have to operate, you have to adopt an international standard and behavior, that protocol that all players must subscribe to, because they can put other players at risk. Right, because they're in a small space. We cannot logistically clean down the locker room every time a player come in. Because we'd have to make like a whole brand new infrastructure, right? Separate zones for you to walk into where only you are isolated. Honestly, I mean, and this is the crazy thing and whatever, that I'd hate to quote a British Prime Minister, but Gordon Brown, I guess he's putting legitimacy to something I think people in the already have been saying, is that in order for this problem to happen, there needs to be a global solution. Like, I know everybody needs a global solution. Yeah. Like it cannot be fixed in part of the place, because here's the reality of the situation, that it really hasn't been fixed anywhere yet.
Nope.
Things look presumably better, but there are holes in their stories nonetheless. Like, America can try to put on the NFL because they have supposedly what did they call it? Like, bent the curve or beat the curve or whatever, flattened the curve.
We haven't done it though.
People are not being tested. And this shit could be every and anywhere. And what we are noticing is that if we look at the Italian model, is that this disease was in Italy before they even realized. And that, so this idea, this didn't start in Wuhan in December, it was there since October. So we might be waking up to a reality where, okay, New York is dealing with their issues now, and it's only because New York is testing people. But this situation is likely to repeat itself across all 50 states, going across, meeting in the middle. I think Washington and California have been attempting to deal with this situation much more aggressively. And then you have internal political strategies, right? Like, oh, we're going to follow the president because, and which is some foolhardy bullshit. So am I likely to let's say tennis is going on, or tries to go on, when someone like a John Isner who's following some bullshit policy, he can't come. He legitimately cannot come to the tournament.
Listen, forget about John Isner and policy. Money controls what people do. So regardless of policy. But the thing is, I think the wake up call, even just for my own personal work, is that the Canadians cancel their tournament. That's in August. Right. Right? Hey, still alive, Pablo. Welcome. We're because so
brother Pablo.
Hello, brother Pablo. We've gone seriously down the church. We took Janina's sermon about new ACC sermon, and we went with it. So the thing, though, I mean, the thing about it, the thing to your point, Realz, is that I think that this is not. I think the wake up call hasn't come to the sports world yet. The sports world still likes to think that it's in a bubble, but it really isn't in a bubble. And
that we could still save the summer.
Well, I think part of it is that because they're used to conducting themselves without having to think about who's missing, right? Because there are other countries who don't have stable federations, and they've just been able to. We've just ignored them and like, sorry, boo, sorry.
Sorry, and they can bypass certain international rules and regulation. They can do that generally.
Well, or like
because athletes typically,
or you could ignore a poor country who didn't have the resources to send their player. But now, if you think about the centerpieces of some of the tournaments, right? You've got Italy, you've got France, you've got the U.S., you've got Asia, and Australia. They still have some time. They got but even Australia is trying to come up with a plan, right? So it's like you've got all of these countries that have been the hub of this global sport, which we've called global, but we really haven't had players from, say, Africa in some ways. You know what I mean? We haven't even thought about those countries who couldn't fully participate. And now we're in a situation where no country can really participate. So it's like, to me, it's like you've got to recognize. That's why I'm like, I don't understand why everyone isn't all hands on deck. Like I've been having that in my DMs. Like, why doesn't the NFL recognize that you're not going to be able to do this until the cities are safe? Like you're not like they
because here's the thing: you are not looking for a bomb. Everyone is a potential bomb. Like everyone, and I don't think they seem to understand that concept.
No.
That you can't be cleared for a tournament unless everybody is cleared for a tournament.
Well, it means being our most vulnerable.
Even the people you don't even care to.
I know.
Because here's the problem: the janitors, the persons in the bathroom, the person who's serving the players food, like those people.
Lowest is the person you have to think about, which you never had to think about before.
And here's the other thing to do. Part of the situation is the U.S. Open might not be able to go on because most of the people who know how it usually works might already be dead. And that's crazy to say.
I know.
But it's true.
Yeah, I think that's why the idea of looking at the sport, this is why the idea of like abstracting the sport out from what the reality of the moment has been jarring.
The situation is crazy. I'm like, what is it? Yeah, I'm like, okay, this might sound cute if this were last year, July.
I know, it's true.
If you could say in the off season, right? Yeah, in the last year, July, you could have been like in the off season. Let's put our heads together, right? Like when things are like, because I mean, generally, tennis is relatively slow after the U.S. Open, right? Because the Asian tournaments seem to take care of themselves. They don't even care if anybody show up, right? They're just like
we're gonna be importing Asia everywhere.
I'm saying? And one of the things, I don't even need players to necessarily organize about the labor issue, which they seem not able to carry on to do. But they're not even talking about how they imagine their own personal safety is going to be, because they can't even meet fans at all. You can't throw a ball to a player. You can't throw a ball to a fan. Nothing. Like,
I mean, I think
this point,
in a weird way, it's been shocking to me to see how. And this is kind of weird. Like, I'm looking and I'm like, it's shocking to me that you are allowing lax government to kind of drive this, because if you care about your industry and if you care about generating revenue and getting back, quote unquote, to business, it is in your best interest to figure out how to move your city, state, country forward to solve the crisis. Not to try to figure out your sport in the moment in isolation, but to actually say, what resources do we have as a company to actually help to find a cure, help to get testing? You know what I mean? Because if you think, I mean, like I was, like I've been reading a little bit about how Taiwan's been doing it, right? So the question for me is, because, Taiwan hasn't shut down restaurants unless they've found a person who has gotten it in the restaurant, then everybody gets like an alert and that restaurant's closed. They've been able to sort of tentatively continue their lives, which is the aim that we're hoping for. But in order for that to happen, you have to be able to track and trace all the infected. And then you also have to go in and completely clean whatever it is. Like, so you have to clean up just like you were talking about. And so the level of surveillance that is required, I think they're envisioning that they could do that kind of surveillance for just the 2,000 or so that they would need to run a tournament. But it's like, it's impossible for that to happen.
But here's the other thing. Taiwan perhaps can assume a certain level of standard of care or living that is not, like in America, abject poverty is real. Like it is just like, it is real. And in so we are imagining a world where we can apply one solution to everything when we can't even apply it even in one place, really, in general, because how is this going to be scaled up? Because here's a tournament, let's say a tournament happens. You have the potential, if Corona is in the locker rooms, man, that everyone in that locker room could be affected.
Well, and then you have a crap idea of isolating the players doesn't make sense as a strategy. I mean, I've seen that.
Right.
That fake, it just because so if you're going to figure out how to isolate the players, then why don't you figure out how to get people tested in your city, in your state?
Right.
So Pablo asked an interesting question, and I've thought about this, and he says how many current players are not going to make it back to the tour because they retire. I actually don't think we're going to see a lot of that unless this goes on longer than a year. I think that people we might have expected to retire this year, I know that a lot of us thought that we'd have like this big exit after the Olympics. And I don't think that people will hang around necessarily for the Olympics, but what a lot of tennis players need, especially the older population, was time to heal, and they're getting that now. I think this might actually allow them to play a little bit longer.
I actually, you know,
but they're not getting rehab.
Yeah, my views have changed in that a little bit. I think to your point about how long it goes, first and foremost, let's talk about levels. I think there will be some players who will be forced to retire because they just have lost too much money.
Yeah.
So they're not getting $1,200 woohoo once like we are. So there will be people for whom they've just been priced out of the sport because they've been unemployed for too long. And then they have to try to figure out
their life in their reality.
Right? So it's like they're going to be those people. That's that tier. Then you're looking at the top tier of folks who are older because it's an older person sport. The part of it is like, yes, they are actually healing, but the other part is that they're also not working hard. They're not training hard. They're not able to compete. That erodes the body too, right? Like
I think probably a lot of them are though, because the top level. Yes and no. So if it's a lower level older person, I agree with that 100%. Top tier players, your Novaks, Rafa, Roger, Serena, Venus, they have the ability to do all the training that they want.
That's
we know
five though.
I know, but I'm just saying, I think that especially that group of people we thought would be gone relatively quickly. And I really think this is going to give them the opportunity to stay a little bit longer. I really do. If they want to, they might be comfortable not on tour for a year and go, I'm done.
But you see,
it's interesting. Go ahead, Mills.
No, because I guess we have no precedent for a situation like this, right? Maybe because in some ways, when there were world wars, people were athletes were still being somewhat physical, and they were allowed time and halfway to sort of train somewhere. And the fact that the environment and the conditions while we are training with other people is potentially dangerous for athletes and whatever. There is no sharing of resources now, because one of the things about this is that it almost forces us all to be selfish and self-centered, right? In order to protect ourselves, we can't necessarily share.
But
I think the people with the money already have their own resources. that's my point. The people with
the thing that's tricky about tennis, it's a very, very small group. It's not right. It's not the top 100, right? It's like what, maybe the top 50, maybe.
But they may have had the resources to do it. But the thing about it is that whether they had the resources already, because to get those because we don't the supply chain is completely gone.
Yeah,
that much of the resources that they can probably get, like gym equipment and whatever the case may be, they may not have access to buy that for themselves.
I think they already have it. That's what I'm saying. I don't think they need to buy anything. I think the most elite of the athletes already had all of that in place. They're not looking to buy anything more. And if they want it, they have the money to get it for sure. They will get it.
But you're talking
that it's 50 players.
That's just that, like, if you have to think about how much money players make. The top 50 is probably going to be comfortable. The top 10 for sure. But yeah, the elite in other sports is like 200, 300 players. The elite in tennis.
I don't even think the elite is top 50.
No, I don't think the elite is top 50. When you say the elite have a team in place, the team is like maybe the top 20.
So yeah, and those are the solid ones.
Yeah, this is also the inequality of the tour that's also going to play out.
You know, so like, what does the tour look like if all of these people that don't have these resources don't come back?
I mean, you basically decimated the tour the way that they had originally wanted, right? Because one of the things they wanted to do was they wanted to eliminate all the people who could be tagged as professional players. And in a pandemic which you don't support people, you don't have resources for folks in terms of money. Because remember, also some people sign contracts with their coaches, right? And so some coaches need to keep getting paid and some are not getting paid. So there are all these kind of different relationships about your team and how you're able to sustain them. And then you also have to think about their sponsorships. Like with the stock market the way it is, companies are being battered left and right. How much money and time do you think you're going to have to keep paying
from those companies?
Yeah, and an athlete that's not performing at all, which was their job. Their job was to perform and be out in front of the public.
Because what you need, Andre, what needs to happen is that if tennis is supposed to come back, NFL and all these other places, they have to make sure that everyone is ready to come back at some kind of level. And it can't be that 20 men and 20 women are performing well when the field is 128.
But we know that tennis doesn't take care of each other. We already know that. So it's a very real possibility that a lot of the tour gets wiped out because of this.
There's resources, though. And that's just the thing, though, because
you can't even pool resources to help. You can't even pool resources because logistically, you've talked about the fact that this disease has made you self-centered. It makes you self-centered.
That's what I'm saying. That's how they were used to it. So this is why I think even the top 20 who had the ability to do these things, they might not have even been thinking about that, because to invest in a gym equipment in your own home requires the space and whatever the case may be. And generally, people sort of like to train together, the chemistry, like the energy. So it would have been easier. That would have been, I wouldn't necessarily spend the money on gym equipment. I would have gone to the local gym or like a private club gym somewhere where I can meet with several other players or like people from a certain team. So I'm not sure. I don't even know if the tennis do an internal account of like, if we were to say come back tomorrow, are we in any shape ready? Like how, I don't know. I think this is.
I think this is when I'm saying, like, when I sat down and I heard that the heads of different sporting organizations were meeting with the president, which I thought was great. But then I realized that with that crew, it's going to be a limited conversation because they're so centered on themselves, right? They're so self-focused.
About profits.
Yeah, like whatever it is, I know they didn't span out, right? They were like, how can we come back? And the first thing they're saying is, let's come back without fans. But how joyous is that going to be as a model ultimately? Like,
well, you know what?
At the end of the day, like, who wants that to be the model moving forward? Like, you're just going to wait until a vaccine shows up like 18 months from now? Or do you try to figure out a way to help the society move into a direction? Because the other thing is the society will not return to the old normal. The society has to be a completely new normal.
Right. And here's the thing. If you return without fans, right? And let's hopefully we are able to fix this pandemic and have everything under control. you cannot then, it shows us that those exorbitant ticket prices were a lie, that you were just trying to make money. That if you don't need us for a pandemic in order to go do your tour, whatever the case may be, you have to change that dynamics now. That this price gouging that you're going to be doing.
I think that all of the sports organizations could probably survive on some level for a little while without fans. It's not something that can happen forever going forward. I don't even think that anyone is considering that. I would hope not, because it is part of the experience. But I think it's a possibility. You know, Magic Johnson has been all over CNN lately. I don't really know why. Maybe because he lived through, HIV/AIDS. I don't know. But he made a pretty valid point. I caught a piece the other day, and he was like, listen, if basketball teams have to play each other without fans, it's going to be weird at first, but they will get used to it very quickly, because this is how we all started playing. We all started playing without fans. We all started playing the pickup games at the playground. It won't be new. It'll be an adjustment. So, and that really does make sense.
But the thing is,
it can survive.
Don't do it, though.
Here's
the thing. Do not do that.
But here is the problem.
Dystopian. It's dystopian to allow that to happen.
I agree, but I'm saying
business model. I know. I totally get it. It can work. But the thing about it is, the most powerful leverage we have right now is that we're all impacted.
Yep.
It really is the most powerful leverage we have. And if we figure out a way to not solve this or not work to help people, you will immediately end up in some sort of bizarre, like futuristic Hunger Games world where, honestly, we will make those compromises and it won't be right.
No,
but I think they'll do it.
But y'all are but you see, I don't think y'all are holding on to the whole picture. We can't have a basketball game because the players could be endangering themselves.
Listen, they're already willing to do that. They're willing to do that. Listen, you can do it within a constrained environment. This is what we're saying, but it's too much of a sacrifice. Listen, they're already doing it in Taiwan. They have they're playing basketball right now. Because what it is because they're doing extreme testing. So you'd have to test a player freaking every day. The results would have to come very quick. And you'd have to be able to control the environment extremely tightly. That's a lot of resources. But if you become convinced that this is the only way you're going to move forward, they will make it happen. They can make it happen. They're employers. You know what I mean? Like, you can make that, you can constrain that enough to do that. You can hold.
All this sounds like a second wave to me, and we haven't even finished with the first wave.
We haven't finished with the first, but they're willing to risk it. They're willing to risk it.
That's the problem. That's why Andrina is saying, don't do anything. Pool your resources to fix the global problem instead of trying to fix your immediate problem of when can we play with a goddamn ball.
Because what you do is you basically take your hand out of it. Like, if you create a situation where people because right now everybody's like, we need to be entertained. We need to be able to entertain. Like, yeah. And Yvette, you're right. The NBA is willing to pay to play and test them all. First of all, they've already tested them all when we're struggling for tests. So what you end up with is this tiered society, which we already knew we had. But you have this tiered society where athletes or certain people who've been determined to have value because of entertainment, really, can go ahead and create an entire process by which you isolate players, set them in a certain arena. You're testing them constantly. I mean, I don't even know why an athlete would even sign on for that. The inhumanity of that is startling, but that's going
to be my next question. As we the rest of society is going to sit down and watch them live in some pampered, isolated life. Because
we're trapped at home, though, so we want entertainment. That's what they're assuming. That
really?
They're assuming our need to be amused and entertained is strong enough. And the way people have been
and where they going to
would be.
And sir, Mr. ATP chairman, I ain't spending my money and in these tough times if we can't work.
Richard Marks on our Twitter on our chat makes a really good point. And ATP chairman makes the point. The biggest revenue generation comes from TV, sponsorship, and ticket sales. Mm-hmm. For right now, ticket sales are eliminated. What are the other two? Anyone, you know what they're thinking? Anyone who could figure out a model to bring back live sports, that owner is thinking about their market share right now.
Yep.
That's what they're thinking about.
As successful if they do it. Well, I think these
players have to be a Pablo.
What?
I mean, I just want to say something. Pablo just mentioned, and hello.
Yeah.
Oh, Pablo said that this can't be done in isolation. The players have to go home, interact with their families. I don't know if they necessarily have to go home. I think they might enforce them from not going home.
Yeah, they might force them not to go home. So what you do is you have a contracted. You have a shortened season, and they cannot leave. Or if they leave, your family will have to isolate with you. Like that's the only model that works. But if you're dealing with a virus that requires testing and mediating in that way, you can't have people leave.
Yeah, but here's the thing. Yeah, okay. Good luck, people. Good luck.
Listen, you keep saying good luck. These people are trying to figure it out. They're trying to figure out because they have enough money and resources to do it. They're like, how do I create a mini town?
They're not trying to save humanity. They're trying to save their company. And this is precisely the thing that Corona is this is where it gets more valid, right?
This is the sermon. This is the teaching from God right now. We can only.
This is the environment in which Corona thrives, right? Yeah. Corona seems to thrive when we are doing the selfish thing, right? When we are sitting here being, don't close down, leave the airport open, let's make some money, let's talk about the economy.
What did I tell you? You are your brother's keeper.
Because here's the thing, though. Here's the thing that you're going to have to find some kind of accommodation, equal accommodation for everyone, right? For the people you've isolated.
No,
the people that you've isolated.
No, you don't. Why? We don't even have equal accommodation for everybody now. And actually, probably might even be better. Every person who has to serve, you get access to a hotel, which is part of a sponsorship that's close. Because first of all, guess what? Hotels aren't making money. So you basically book out all the rooms in a hotel for a set number of weeks. There's your place. Then the people who are cooking and feeding you, they also have to shelter there. Like you imagine this is like costly, but in their evaluation, they're making no money now.
So anything will be better.
Here's the thing, though. Here's the thing. I mean, there has to be an equality in care in that hotel, right?
Honey,
because here's the thing.
If the cook drops down and nobody knows about it, and they replace him with another cook, how you know?
Yes, that's wonderful. I know that's how they're going to do it. But guess what? When the cook drops down with Corona, right? How are we going to sanitize the food that he just ate?
That's fine.
That
you throw it out.
This cook that just dropped down. But this is not going to work. This is not going to work. I mean,
you know what? The thing is, what I want you to say.
I admire them for trying.
You see how this chain breaks down? You think it breaks down, but you don't understand. It's a recipe for disaster in the name of profit. But do we not think that these people are going to try it first? Aren't they going to try it first?
Yes, they are.
Because here's the best part about it. That hotel, it's like, let's make even more money. So I'm gonna skimp on the cleaning. And this is
I mean,
it's where it breaks.
It's a crazy model, but
listen. She's not saying it's right.
Just imagine, right? That one player, right? Because you're going to have the potential of an entire team. And in basketball, there's only 10 of them or whatever the case, I mean, not much. But imagine a whole football team running up and down, huffing and puffing.
Football players get hurt on the field, and we still participate and love it. They deny even the fact that there is such a thing as what is that disease that's hitting them in the head. They deny the existence of that. You think people won't look at these players being damaged and still want the entertainment?
That's right.
Have we not? I mean, this is the thing that's really sad, but it's like, and
I won't want it.
I know, but even
I won't want it. But
even to Pablo's point about the supply chain breaking down, think about how people pick up and craft and shape events. We've used this example before. Labor Cup does it. What you have to imagine is you have to imagine that this is a constraint. These people's goal is just to have live sports on TV. They didn't say the same model as what would happen pre-corona. They're saying live sports.
Okay.
Sell advertising dollars and make.
That's fine. That's fine. But how are they gonna get past this by the local? I mean, I guess they can bribe the particularly municipalities
Realz,
and local government for whatever the case is.
Why wouldn't they agree to that? Why wouldn't the local municipality agree to that?
Because how can these people allow said tournament a moving tournament?
It's not
right?
roving.
Because tournament will be moving.
It's not roving. This is what I'm saying.
It's going to stay in one place.
It stays in one place, just like how people wanted to host the Olympics in one spot.
Okay,
you just go back. This is the idea. This is the idea they've been floating with baseball. You take a place and you essentially construct an experience, just like how we went. Listen, we went to Laver Cup. That was basically a dome. They built stands. They built food stands. Right next door were hotels. Everything can be constructed right around there. If someone is desperate enough to make money, and they already have
the construction though.
Super Bowl. Think about the Super Bowl. Think about how people manage the Super Bowl.
They're already there.
They exist.
Villages and whatnot. They're already there. You just have to get everybody to go. I think Realz have to stop wondering whether or not if it's right, because we know it's not right. It isn't a matter of right or wrong.
I know. It sounds like
a matter of.
I know. It sounds like I'm defending it. I know. Pablo's like, Andreen, you sound like Ayn Rand. I'm not saying that. Well, what I'm saying is, look at the sacrifices we are making. We are letting store folks that work in stores make no money. That poor woman who died, $20.74. We let people die every day, simply so that the country can feel comfortable going to the grocery store. You think a team that is looking at their money dwindling from lack of revenue from advertising is not trying to figure out how they can, the chase is on for who can get the best live sports now. That's
it. It's not about safety. It's not about anybody's health. It's about money.
I don't doubt any of it. I don't doubt any of this. But I'm just simply saying that whatever recipe you cook up with.
You're right. And Realz, you're right. It is ultimately self-defeating. But what have we learned about how do we learn that at least
humanity?
How do we learn? We first have to attempt the self-defeating thing, right? Like they cannot imagine no sports for the rest of the year. So they are going to try their to make it happen. And it will lead to a rise in virus, right? Like it can't help but somebody's going to break a rule. Somebody's going to sneak out. Somebody's going to do something. You can't help it.
But here's the best part. Here's the interesting thing about Corona, and as opposed to why Corona is kind of different, is that you see before, I as the CEO didn't have to put my body on the line, right? I just let these people do that, right? Capitalism is rootless. It's for the genocide. It's for the slavery. Capitalism would do anything in the name of profit over people.
Sure.
But when we talk about people have always been a certain sect of the population.
Sure.
Corona doesn't care.
But what does that mean for this group?
Corona attacks everyone. So while they are having their NFL or whatever, tennis or whatever the case may be, Corona can affect everybody, including them.
What does that mean?
I'm just simply saying that it not only is it self-defeating. I don't know why I would want to make profits and I can't hold on to the profit. But
what
who knows? We would see.
Athletes are signing up to get their brain bashed in every day, hoping that they're going to be the one to survive. Boris
I'm not just talking about athletes because
Boris Johnson ran around and shook people's hand to prove that there was no such thing. There are certain people who actually don't buy into the idea.
I work with one of them that doesn't buy into the fact that this is real. I work with a doctor every single day that tries to go around all of the governing bodies of my hospital to bring patients in. Every single day, a physician. There's always going to be somebody who's willing to risk it all in the name of money.
I mean, you're right. The thing that's going to happen is somebody's going to devastate their sports team. And God forbid, and some young
and devastate them too, because they can catch Corona.
I mean, have you seen the people? Realz, we know we can catch Corona. Have you seen people outside jogging still?
Every day. And you know what we're learning about that?
They're not coming in contact with anyone per se, though. I mean, they're taking this.
We're slowly learning that those people who are out jogging and sweating and running past other people are actually able to spread it more into the air than the person just walking and breathing because their sweat particles are falling off. So, I mean, just it's there's so much that we still have to learn, and we are going to fail on so many levels before we get it, if we ever truly get it. That's what's going to happen. We're going to keep trying all of these new different ways about how, let's try this, let's try that, maybe we can do it this way, and it's not going to work, it's not going to work, it's not going to work. I do believe we will reach a time that it is under control, but how many people are we going to lose in the process to get there? Because people are just flat out selfish. Period. It's all about being selfish. We do not think with a collective consciousness in this world, let alone this country. We do not.
And also because, you know what, to be honest, a lot of people are trapped into
is the perfect environment for Rona.
But think about it. There are also people who are trapped in the model. There are also people who are trapped in this model. Think about the first thing people are going to say is, we don't have any games. We're going to have to let go of our workers. And the moment people start saying that, you're going to be like, oh, no, we have to figure out. Because that's the part of this model that actually is going to, because, you know, right now people are donating their salaries to keep stadium workers employed and to give. But there's going to come a time where people are going to say that's no longer sustainable.
Pablo.
And people are going to make those kinds of choices. Or you're going to offer those choices up to people, which is scary, but like, you know, like you need a vision. You need a vision of, like, you're right. You need someone with a unifying vision, which was how we started out the sermon, that the ATP had a unifying vision with the WTA and all the different tennis bodies. But the problem is that vision
ATP have a unifying vision for itself.
No, but I mean, but it requires a unified vision that the global leaders are taking. Have you seen that, Mark, yet? Nope.
No. So we're going to pray about it. What we're going to do is we're going to ask the congregation to come forward. We're going to make an exception today. You do not yet need to be saved to take part in our communion. You do not. It is time, everybody.
You want to hear? Yeah. Are we going to let people come on and have a word and say how they feel?
Put the link in the comments. We got time. While we take our communion of Powerade and bananas, I would like Realz, please post the link to come on live into the chat.
If you can DM me,
just post it.
So you can direct DM me on Twitter if you can. I'll put it in the comment section because I don't want anybody to bomb us like they do.
Realz, you have to let them in. Put it in the comment section.
Okay. You're better stress. I got that bit.
There it is.
I'm the gatekeeper.
It is time to come forward. Get your communion, confess your sins, give us your testimony, pray together. It is time. Realz tennis fans. Pablo, please come on your knees.
We have wine and it's being given out by Benoit Pair. So
Jazz,
Deacon Deb is here.
Jazz.
Hello, Deb. How are you?
Hey, forgive I don't think I've combed my hair in about 5 days, so.
Welcome to the world.
Hey, Deb.
How are you doing?
Hey.
What do you want to?
How's the world of social isolation?
Hey. How's everybody?
We're good. What is your good word today? What's the good word today, Deacon Deb?
I just want to say, I just want to say, you all are preaching gospel. You all are preaching the gospel, and you've shamed the devil of capitalism.
I know. Mute yourself, Deb, so we can hear you. No, mute your computer. Mute your computer.
Mute
your sound. Turn on your sound, and then you speak. It'll be easier.
Right.
Unmute your mic, Deb. Unmute your mic.
There
you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, perfect.
Much better.
No more echo.
Right.
I love it.
What what is the word of wisdom from Deacon Deb that you would like to offer after you unmute your mic again? We need to hear what this woman is so full of knowledge. If you have never heard her speak, settle down and buckle up, folks. But your mic is still muted. Unmute the mic, baby girl. Unmute the mic.
You guys hear me?
Yes.
There we go.
But please share us some Deb wisdom.
Give us some Deb wisdom. What have you been observing, Deb, about tennis? Start speaking.
Well, one of the things that I've been observing is that everyone seems in such a hurry to get this thing back on the road, but I don't know how they're going to do it with a global sport like tennis. I just can't see it. And all you need is one link that kind of sets everything off. So, but I just wanted to listen to you guys. You're doing an awesome job. Great.
You look lovely. Happy Easter.
Enjoy your hat, Deb. Your glove, Deb. I don't see your glove, Deb.
We should have asked everyone to find their Easter hat that they were going to wear out.
I know, right?
Right.
Deb.
Stay away from people, Deb. Stay away from people,
Anybody
Deb.
else that needs to come and testify today? Come
Have a
on.
good day, Deb. Thanks for coming on.
Do not be shy. Click the link. Click the link. Do not be a Maria. Click the link and come.
You also don't have to be on camera, so you're good.
Right. You just
have to be on camera.
off.
You can turn the camera off. Come on, Pablo. Where are you at? Jasmine, Tony, Maya.
So the other thing is, while you guys are while we are looking and waiting for folks to come, what have you guys been doing tennis wise? Are you what have you been tracking? What's keeping you excited about tennis right now? I'll be honest.
Let me tell you,
I'm not doing much. Huh? What are you doing?
So every time I pick up my phone, I almost have the urge to click on my tennis. Which matches are being played now? And I was like, oops, there's no tennis. There's no tennis. There's no future matches to come up. There's nothing to plan in my schedule. Like, there's no tennis. Dima, tennis is not back on. But tennis is trying to be back on. So I've actually today considered deleting my ATP app, ATP WTA app.
You deleted it?
I was about to do that to get
matches. So for the Federer fans on the timeline, I'm actually participating in the Federer tennis kit draw.
Oh, are you? I saw that. I am not participating, but I did
I'm
see
voting
that.
for those kits. One observation, which I made online, Federer's kits were really loose. Thank God. The 80s and the 90s of loose clothing, absolutely not. Those kits are really bad.
But you know what? You didn't notice then.
No,
I'm just like.
But now they're like. Now you know what? Federer dressed like Andy Roddick. I was like, why is everybody so like? Why is his shirt so roomy?
So you know what I'm living for right now? The daily so and so and so and so are now live together on Instagram. Like Dan Pavrenka and Benoit Paire seem to do it a lot. I have no idea what they're saying because they're speaking French, but it just looks fun. It just looks so fun. And then Sveta was live. And I was so excited that I was just like, I was at my desk at work and I just stopped everything and turned it on. I'm like, yeah, screw this. Let's watch Sveta. And so that's been fun. And we get to see like the, more personable side of players because listen, they're bored too. They are bored. So I'm enjoying I'm enjoying the random notifications that I get that a player is live on Instagram. I will totally jump in.
That's super cool. And how has
I have been watching.
Go ahead. You've been watching what?
I watched Anna Kournikova and Venus play for the finals in Miami. And I forgot how young those players were competing for big titles. They were at the time Venus was 17 and Anna Kournikova was 16. And it was an interesting, and I have to say that we didn't have a ladies draw, whatever.
We're gonna do it
my
in
number
Rome.
one pick.
You're in Rome.
Okay. Girl, they ain't gonna be no.
I mean, during the Rome week. During the Rome week.
I mean, if it's one place we're not gonna be allowed to be at all, it's Rome. Like,
I know. During the Rome tournament.
Right. We'll have our own Rome.
But yeah, so that was it was interesting watching some of those old matches. Watching well, I guess I watched YouTube, and YouTube keep putting them out. Apparently, tournaments are putting them out just the same. Yep. They're putting out the full matches. I think someone observed that how really disgusting it is that we've been having the same set of commentators for over 20 years.
I know.
They've been
one bit.
A single bit. Their narrative is all the same. And it's just really
it must be funny to go back though and like check those narratives like 20 years later.
Oh man, we could do a whole thing on that, couldn't we?
I've been just checking the I know people have Serena watch party and whatever, but I've been checking because those are fans that where tennis was invented in 2011. But the real fans, we know that the matches which had the spice and the vigor, the vibe was in the early 2000s, right? When you had the Hingis and the Capriati and the Lindsay and the Mary.
They did the Capriati Serena final in Miami, right? Recently. They replayed that, I think. Yeah.
A better one would be Venus versus Capriati. No, that was a bop. That was a bop. Gosh, really. Let me tell y'all something. While Capriati was giving Serena literally diarrhea, Venus was holding it down for the Williams gang. And Brother Tony is here.
Who's here?
Hey, Tony.
Tony. Hey, Tony.
Hey, guys.
How are you?
Oh, I'm just loving this quarantine sermon today. I appreciate all your preachings.
Bless you, Tony. Bless you.
And my good word is, now's the time to rewatch the only matches that mattered. So I go back through, and every other match that was a loss no longer counts. So it's perfect. It's actually what I did before quarantine. So I guess
you're living your best life. Nothing has changed.
I mean, to me, tennis stopped in 2017. So I've been doing this for 2 years.
You basically lost brain power right now because you've eliminated so much from your head.
I hope Serena stands would finally acknowledge the gifts Venus was out here giving y'all. The many gifts, because they're all on YouTube now for display. They're all there. Okay?
I mean, gifts is an interesting way to word that, but
did you watch the 2008 Wimbledon? Today?
I watched some of that. I watched enough of that.
You're not getting that today. This is not yours. But there's some.
I mean, that's a really solid match, though. That's got to be one of their top matches. Where obviously Venus comes out on top, but like still got to be one of their better played matches because sometimes the skill level is always a little bit off. Somebody was at a higher tier. But I felt like both of them really at the same peak at that moment. No,
Tony, have you added to your Serena shrine during this time?
I have actually. I got a gift from another podcast that I added to it, but what was that?
That shall remain nameless. I'm joking.
So petty.
Well, I don't get any gifts from this one, so I have to get the ones.
What the hell do you mean?
You're fiddling your calendar, you see now?
Get him out of here. Get him out. Get him out. All the advertisements.
Okay, love you guys.
That is, I looked at the McEnroe. Oh, so Richard Marks, you looked at the McEnroe, Connors, and Berg matches of the 70s and the 80s. Oh my gosh, should we go back that far? Oh God. You know what though?
I don't like any of those players per se though.
No, but you know what? I wouldn't mind looking back at some of those early like 90s, 80s, 90s like US Open night matches. Those are pretty good.
If I tell you guys that I have started watching old matches, you know we're in a really bad place.
I know, because you don't rewatch old matches.
I do not watch old matches.
That's why she's watching Feta.
That's why I want. Well, hey, did you see Venus and Grigor though? I mean, like she's trying to get him to get naked. I'm here for it. And you know what? He did it. I mean, he didn't get naked, but she kept asking, "Let me see your abs. Come on, Grigor."
Did you notice that they were very, very good though? They had good chemistry.
They were amazing, and he did it. He totally did it.
Let me
She's been watching the Federer volley challenge. Have you seen any of that? I didn't see Federer do his. If he did one, I don't even know, but apparently he started it. I did see again on Instagram. What's his name? Sergei Stahovsky, and I don't know, was that his wife with him? Whoever was with him seemed to be a better volleyer.
Oh, no, that's the Andy Murray challenge. The Andy Murray challenge was the one where he was trying to get you to do it in a pair. Federer's one was the Janina challenge, where it was just by yourself.
That's the one. Okay, so all right, fine. They're both volley challenges, but
no, they're great.
That was his wife, Janina.
That was his wife. Well, I felt like she had much more control over the ball.
I mean, he's an ATP tennis player. I mean, like as I think Tumani and Carol mentioned, I've seen more volley in the last 2 weeks than I've seen in the tour for the last 3 years.
Yeah,
I mean,
he is a servant volleyer.
I like the little challenges that they've been doing. I mean, it is kind of nice to see some of the players. I haven't been tuning into the Stan and Benoit pair sex fest or inappropriate.
Oh, you should. You should.
It's inappropriate. I mean, they're speaking in French, and luckily I understand. But I think somewhere someone sometimes translates some of it. I know in the conversation about, and you know, the part that's really I find surprising, it's Stan out here trying to tell people to spill secret. Boo, you're supposed to be like, there's certain conversations we're not having out here. He's like, so did you have sex?
They don't talk about this stuff ahead of time. You think
I missed that.
I don't know about that. Coco has been quite cute.
Coco's been very cute. Wow. Oh my God. Richard is bringing us to the classic. You're trying to watch Pam try to take down Chrissy?
Wow. Is anybody else coming on? Otherwise, we need to wrap this sermon up. Anybody else want to say hi?
Oh, Maya says she's got to run. She's doing a peach cobbler coming out. Happy Easter. Thank you. Easter. No, that's awesome.
Maya, the UPS, the USPS is still working, Maya. So, you know, mail me.
I have to ask her. I saw an ad on my LinkedIn from the ATP. They did like a United ATP thing. Did anyone watch that? I guess it was like a Zoom call or some sort of a Zoom event with a bunch of players. Is that what that was? Mm-hmm. The United ATP, something along those lines, or United Tennis.
But I think with Bethany Maddox Sands.
No, that was separate. The
Bethany
Maddox Sands is one thing, but on my LinkedIn today, it looks like the ATP shared a video that's part of their new brand thing. So I was like, "Ooh, I might be missing some programming." But when I went online, nobody was talking about it, so I thought I might.
Well, I know Tennis Channel or someone.
Oh no, it was episode 1.
Andy Roddick has been making stuff of it.
No, it's called Tennis United episode 1, and it's basically like a massive like Zoom call with a bunch of different players' faces on the screen. Huh. Yeah, like I see. Yeah, I don't think that's not the one with Bethany. It's something else. So yeah, I will share it. I'll get a copy of it and share it to you all.
All that so we can all praise it up.
Ignore it altogether.
All right, kids.
So thank you all for coming in. This was quite lovely. Is there anyone else? And you know, all you shy folks will make this a thing afterward. It's on Instagram. It was 20 minutes hosted by Vasek and Magic Sands. I think we're talking about something else.
Oh yeah, that was
but there was
this one, Tennis United, is like a little program. I just sent it via DM to you guys. So if you wanted to put it in the chat, Realz.
Okay.
So I'm not logged in.
Oh.
Put it in the chat so someone can see it. I saw it was 20 minutes with Vasek and who was it? They did Felix and
this is the same thing they're talking about. This is it.
Is that what it was? The Tennis United episode 1? Huh.
All right.
Seeing all the players.
Yeah, because I'm sure I see what's
We'll have to check that out.
Faces somewhere.
I mean, yeah, we'll have to.
Oh, and Federer apparently hosted some Wimbledon, voiced over some Wimbledon thing.
Oh, yeah. It was really nice. It was actually, I have to say, you know what? Like, I wasn't really in my feelings with the cancellation of Wimbledon because weirdly enough, my plan was actually to go to the French Open this year. Which, by the way, they haven't canceled the fight yet, so we'll see. But no, so I was kind of, because I'd prepared myself for Wimbledon to be canceled, but then Federer's voiceover where he does the like, you know, Wimbledon is going to come back next year. Cheer, you know, we cheer for you now. Oh my God. It totally got me a little bit like, oh my God. I got a little bit verklempt, to be honest. I was like, oh wow, this is like the end of an era. Like we assume these things come back, but you just never know. As Realz, you have no idea.
You never know.
But you know, everyone wants to say, but you know what? I hear it. You know, I come across the doom and gloom, so
not enough. You're like, I'm the one that's like, it's gonna be Hunger Games, and you're like, no, they'll never. Deb did the Hunger Games. See, Deb, I know.
Oh,
it got me all in my feelings.
I mean, live Hunger Games.
But
anyway, thank you for coming, folks. We will be having. Right, and I don't want to stay too long. Janina has supposedly Easter dinner with her family. I don't know why she has to sing.
We're good. We're good. We're good. You know what? Stop being a little brat. We're not going to have any of that crap. Do you understand? Cut the shit. You're always trying to blame everything on me and my family. We're gonna. You know what? Can we get Realz a family? Anyone want to volunteer?
Oh God, no.
We should have played Federer out. We should have played Federer's Wimbledon message out. That would have been.
Where is it? I'll play it.
Yeah.
That was lovely. So we can all.
So, folks, this is an open invitation. This was supposed to be an hour podcast, but apparently, you know what? You know how we like to discuss real and pertinent issues. Exactly.
No, well, that was a real sermon. We were preaching. We were tag team preaching with Janina. Woo-hoo!
Bring notes. We're always in trouble. We're always in trouble when Janina bring notes.
I will say, though, I do think it's interesting to read that wonderful fantasy piece by the new ATP chairperson. Let's imagine a future where tennis has one single platform, as Janina said.
Can you imagine how amazing that would be, though? I mean, seriously, it would be pretty freaking awesome.
And one freaking app.
They already have YouTube, though. They have YouTube, so.
Okay, so listen, kids. God bless you all. Thank you for joining us at this service. We hope to see you back here. Okay?
Since 1877, Wimbledon has embraced the championships. You have watched through multiple types of screen at all hours of the day and night, descended from afar, even queued. My, how you have queued. This summer, sadly, we must come together by staying apart. No tents will be pitched, no records broken, no trophies engraved. But as we say thank you for your passion and support, we remind ourselves that countless champions will be crowned. As frontline workers across the globe compete for us, we cheer for them. For now, we play suspended. We are united in hope that tomorrow will be better than today.
Good night.
I
had feelings. Just so y'all know, no feelings at all. But
I know. Tony, you're so right. We're like, give us this copy.
Yeah. And if you and of course fans, you can always make suggestions. I see you, Simwa. I see you, Afua, Richard. Yeah, you know what? Oddly enough, during this time at home, I have not been watching true crime drama. I guess because I'm living in one of those basically now.
Oh, I will mention a book that I'm reading, and I'm eager for other people to read it so that I can talk about it. And it's horrible because I've ignored it for a very long time.
It's Harry Potter?
No, I'm reading The Parable of the Sower. It's perfectly dystopian. Octavia Butler. So if you've read it,
just like Ken Follett. No, Octavia Butler.
Yeah, Octavia Butler. Power Above the Soul.
Right.
I saw that you were reading that, so I did request it from my library. I will read it with you.
You're
probably done.
No. I just started it this morning, but I'm 60% of the way in because it's really gripping.
Oh, shit. Tony says, let's do a Harry Potter podcast. Listen, honestly, Realz and I have been talking about it like for a couple of years.
Do it.
Do you want it? Do you guys want it? Would you participate? I know Andreen is so not in on it. That's okay. But
yeah, right. Deb will do. Oh, we want to do a book. Oh, Pablo says, how about a book podcast? We will do it. So
we've got plenty of time.
The first one you will do is Harry Potter, and Deb is going to come on and co-host it with you all.
Perfect.
Deb, I'm volunteering you.
Okay.
Tony, you want in? Tony just finished all of them as well. So yeah, let's do it. We'll plan it. Deb, we will reach out to you and we are going to do our first Harry Potter podcast. Okay, can you go now? Bye.
Yes.
Expelliarmus. Goodbye, folks.